Hello everybody, welcome to our reading of The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. Last time we left off in the middle of a chapter when Junior's sister, he just found out Junior's sister left to get married. Okay, so we left off at the bottom and a little scared. So we're gonna pick up on this page here. Well, a lot of scared. She was trying to live out her dream. We should have all been delirious that she moved out of the basement. We'd been trying to get her out of there for years. Of course, my mother and father would have been happy if she'd just gotten a part-time job at the post office or trading post and maybe just moved into an upstairs bedroom in our house. But I just kept thinking that my sister's spirit hadn't been killed. She hadn't given up. This reservation had tried to suffocate her, had kept her trapped in a basement, and now she was out roaming the huge grassy fields of Montana. How cool! I felt inspired. Of course, my parents and grandmother were in shock. They thought my sister and I were going absolutely crazy. But I thought we were being warriors, you know? And a warrior isn't afraid of confrontation. So I went to school the next day and walked right up to Gordy, the genius white boy. Gordy, I said, I need to talk to you. I don't have time, he said. Mr. Orcutt and I have to debug some PCs. Don't you hate PCs? They are sickly and fragile and vulnerable to viruses. PCs are like French people living during the bubonic plague. Wow, and people thought I was a freak. I much prefer Macs, don't you, he asked. They're so poetic. This guy was in love with computers. I wondered if he was secretly writing a romance about a skinny white boy genius who was having sex with a half-breed Apple computer. Computers are computers, I said. One or the other, it's all the same. Gordy sighed. So, Mr. Spirit, he said, are you going to bore me with your tautologies all day, or are you going to actually say something? Tautologies? What the heck were tautologies? I couldn't ask Gordy because then he'd know I was an illiterate Indian idiot. You don't know what a tautology is, do you? He asked. Yes, I do, I said. Really, I do. Completely, I do. You're lying. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. How can you tell? Because your eyes dilated, your breathing rate increased a little bit, and you started to sweat. Okay, so Gordy was a human lie detector machine too. All right, I lied, I said. What is tautology? Gordy sighed again. I hated that sigh. I wanted to punch that sigh in the face. A tautology is a repetition of the same sense in different words, he said. Oh, I said. What the bleep was he talking about? It's a redundancy. Oh, you mean redundant, like saying the same thing over and over but in different ways? Yes. Oh, so if I said something like, Gordy is a bleep without ears and an ear without a bleep, then that would be a tautology. Gordy smiled. That's not exactly a tautology, but it is funny. You have a singular wit. I laughed. Gordy laughed too. But then he realized that I wasn't laughing with him, I was laughing at him. What's so funny, he asked. I can't believe you said singular wit. That sounds like freaking British or something. Well, I am a bit of an Anglophile. An Anglophile? What's an Anglophile? It's someone who loves Mother England. God, this kid was an 80-year-old literature professor trapped in the body of a 15-year-old farm boy. Listen, Gordy, I said, I know you're a genius and all, but you are one weird dude. I'm quite aware of my differences. I wouldn't classify them as weird. Don't get me wrong, I think weird is great. I mean, if you look at all the great people in history, Einstein, Michelangelo, Emily Dickinson, then you're looking at a bunch of weird people. I'm going to be late for class, Gordy said. You're going to be late for class. Perhaps you should, as they say, cut to the chase. I looked at Gordy. He was a big kid, actually strong from bucking bales and driving trucks. He was probably the strongest geek in the world. I want to be your friend, I said. Excuse me? He asked. I want us to be friends, I said. Gordy stepped back. I assure you, he said, I am not a homosexual. Oh no, I said, I don't want to be friends that way. I just meant regular friends. I mean, you and I, we have a lot in common. Gordy studied me now. I was an Indian kid from the reservation. I was lonely and sad and isolated and terrified, just like Gordy. And so we did become friends. Not the best of friends, not like Rowdy and me. We didn't share secrets or dreams. No, we studied together. Gordy taught me how to study. Best of all, he taught me how to read. Listen, he said one afternoon in the library, you have to read a book 3 times before you know it. The first time you read it for the story. the plot, the movement from scene to scene that gives the book its momentum, its rhythm. It's like riding a raft down a river. You're just paying attention to the currents. Do you understand that? Not at all, I said. Yes, you do, he said. Okay, I do, I said. I really didn't, but Gordy believed in me. He wouldn't let me give up. The second time you read a book, you read it for its history, for its knowledge of history. You think about the meaning of each word and where that word came from. I mean, you read a novel that has the word spam in it, and you know where that word comes from, right? Spam is junk email, I said. Yes, that's what it is, but who invented the word? Who first used it? And how has the meaning of the word changed since it was first used? I don't know, I said. Well, you have to look all that up. If you don't treat each word that seriously, then you're not treating the novel seriously. I thought about my sister in Montana. Maybe romance novels were absolutely serious business. My sister certainly thought they were. I suddenly understood that if every moment of a book should be taken seriously, then every moment of a life should be taken seriously as well. I draw cartoons, I said. What's your point? Gordy asked. I take them seriously. I use them to understand the world. I use them to make fun of the world, to make fun of people. And sometimes I draw people because they're my friends and family, and I want to honor them. So you take your cartoons as seriously as you take books? Yeah, I do, I said. That's kind of pathetic, isn't it? No, not at all, Gordy said. If you're good at it and you love it, and it helps you navigate the river of the world, then it can't be wrong. Wow, this dude was a poet. My cartoons weren't just good for giggles, they were also good for poetry. Funny poetry, but poetry nonetheless. It was seriously funny stuff. But don't take anything too seriously either, Gordy said. Oops. He was an extremely weird dude, but he was the smartest person I'd ever known. He would always be the smartest person I'd ever known, and he certainly helped me through school. He not only tutored me and challenged me, but he made me realize that hard work, that the act of finishing, of completing, of accomplishing a task is joyous. In Wellpinit, I was a freak because I loved books. In Reardon, I was a joyous freak. And my sister, she was a traveling freak. We were the freakiest brother and sister in history.